You can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant. Excepting Alice, you can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant. Just walk right in, it's around the back, just a half a mile from the railroad track. You can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant. This song is called Alice's Restaurant. It's about Alice and the restaurant, but Alice's Restaurant is not the name of the restaurant. That's just the name of the song. That's why Arlo calls the song Alice's Restaurant. Now, it all started many a Thanksgiving ago. When Arlo and his friend went to visit Alice at the restaurant. But Alice doesn't live in the restaurant. She lives in the church nearby the restaurant, in the bell tower, with her husband Ray and Fasha the dog. And living in the bell tower, like that, they got a lot of room downstairs, where the pews used to be. And having all that room, seeing as how they took out all the pews, they decided that they didn't have to take out their garbage for a long time. They got up there and found all the garbage in there and decided that it'd be a friendly gesture for them to take the garbage down to the city dump. So they took the half a ton of garbage, put it in the back of a red VW microbus, took shovels and rakes and implements of destruction, and headed on toward the city dump. Well, they got there, and there was a big sign and a chain across the dump saying, "Closed on Thanksgiving." And they had never heard of a dump closed on Thanksgiving. Tears in their eyes, they drove off into the sunset looking for another place to put the garbage. They didn't find one till they came to the side of the side road. And off the side of the side road was another 15-foot cliff. And at the bottom of the cliff was another pile of garbage. And they decided that one big pile was better than two little piles, and rather than bring that one up, they decided to throw theirs down. And that's what they did. Drove back to the church, had a Thanksgiving dinner that couldn't be beat, and didn't get up until the next morning when they got a phone call from Officer Opie. He said, "Kid, we found your name on an envelope at the bottom of half a ton of garbage, and I just wanted to know if you had any information about it." And Arlo said, Yes, Officer Obie, I cannot tell a lie. I put that envelope under that garbage. After speaking to Opie on the phone about 45 minutes, they finally arrived at the truth of the matter, and Opie said they had to go down to the police officer's station. So they got into the red VW microbus with the shovels and rakes and implements of destruction and headed on toward the police officer's station. Now, friends, there was only one of two things that Opie could have done at the police officer's station. And the first was he could have given him a medal for being so brave and honest on the telephone. And the second, for giving him a medal for being so brave and honest on the telephone, which wasn't very likely, and they didn't expect it. And the second thing was that he could have bawled them out. And told them never to be seen driving garbage around the vicinity again. Which was what they expected. But when they got to the police officer's station, there was a third possibility that they hadn't counted upon, and they were both immediately arrested. Handcuffed. And Arlo said, Obie, I can't pick up the garbage with these handcuffs on. Obie said, shut up, kid, and get in the patrol car. And that's what they did. Sat in the back of the patrol car and drove to the, quote, scene of the crime, unquote. Arlo tells us about the town of Stockbridge, Massachusetts, back in the 1960s when this all happened. They had 3 stop signs, 2 police officers, 1 police car, but when they got to the, quote, scene of the crime, unquote, there were 5 police officers and 3 police cars, being the biggest crime of the last 50 years. And everybody wanted to get in a newspaper story about it. And they was using up all kinds of stuff that they had hanging around the police officer station. They was taking plaster tire tracks and footprints, dog smelling prints, and they took 27 8x10 colored glossy photographs with circles and arrows and a paragraph on the back of each one, explaining what each one was to be used as evidence against them. Pictures of the approach, the getaway, the northwest corner, the southwest corner, and that's not to mention the aerial photography. After the ordeal, they went back to the jail. Opie said he was going to put them in a cell. He said, kid, I'm going to put you in a cell. I want your wallet and your belt. Arlo said, Obie, I can understand you want my wallet so I don't have any money to spend in the cell. But what do you want my belt for? And Obie said, Kid, we don't want any hangings. Arlo said, Obie, did you think I was going to hang myself for littering? And friends, Obie was, because he took out the toilet seat so he couldn't hit himself over the head and drown. And he took out the toilet paper so they couldn't bend the bars. Roll the toilet paper out the window and have an escape. Obie was just making sure, and it was 4 or 5 hours later that Alice, remember Alice? It's a song about Alice. Came by with a few nasty words to Obie on the side and bailed them out of jail. They all went back to the church, had another Thanksgiving dinner that couldn't be beat. And didn't get up till the next morning when they all had to go to court. They walked in, sat down. Obie came in with 27 8x10 colored glossy pictures with the circles and arrows and a paragraph on the back of each one explaining what each one was to be used as evidence against them. Man came in, said, all rise. We all stood up, and Opie stood up with the 27 8x10 colored glossy pictures, and the judge walked in, sat down with the C&I dog. And he sat down. We sat down. Opie looked at the C&I dog. Then at the 27 8x10 colored glossy pictures with the circles and arrows and a paragraph on the back of each one explaining what each one was. And he looked at the C&I dog. Then at the 27 8x10 colored glossy pictures with the circles and arrows and a paragraph on the back of each one, and began to cry because Obie came to the realization that it was a typical case of American blind to justice, and there wasn't nothing he could do about it. And the judge wasn't going to look at the 27 8x10 colored glossy pictures with the circles and arrows and the paragraph on the back of each one explaining what each one was to be used as evidence against them. And they were fined $50 and had to pick up the garbage in the snow. That's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about the draft, which we no longer have, thank God. Thanks to Arlo. I would like to pause and give him special thanks, because I really feel he was responsible for getting rid of that horrible thing that we called the draft. So thank you, Arlo. Give thanks this Thanksgiving to Arlo, because we don't have the draft. And all the protesters in the 60s who stopped the draft. So Arlo says they had a building down in New York City called Whitehall Street, where you walk in, get injected, inspected, detected, infected, neglected, and selected. Arlo went down, got his physical examination one day. He walked in, sat down, got good and drunk the night before. So he looked and felt his best when he went in that morning. Because he wanted to look like the all-American kid from New York City. He wanted to be the all-American kid from New York. He walked in, sat down. He was hung down, brung down, hung up, and all kinds of mean, nasty, ugly things. He walked in, sat down, gave him a piece of paper that said, "Kid, see the psychiatrist in room 604. He went up there and he said, "Shrink, I want to kill. I want to kill. I want to see blood, gore, and guts and veins in my teeth. Eat dead, burnt bodies. I mean, kill. Kill." And he started jumping up and down, yelling, "Kill! Kill!" And the shrink started jumping up and down with him, and they was both jumping up and down, yelling, "Kill! Kill! Kill!" And the sergeant came over and pinned a medal on him, sent him down the hall and said, "You're our boy." Arlo didn't feel too good about it. Proceeded down the hall, getting more injections, inspections, detections, neglections, and all kinds of stuff that they was doing to Arlo at the thing there. And he was there for 2 hours, 3 hours. He was there for a long time, going through a lot of crazy things there. And they was leaving no part untouched. He proceeded through and finally came to the very last man. He walked in, sat down after a whole big thing there. He walked up and said, "What do you want?" He said, "Kid, we only got one question. Have you ever been arrested?" And he proceeded to tell him the story of Alice's restaurant, massacre with full orchestration and 5-part harmony and stuff like that. And of the phenomenon, he stopped him right there. He said, "Kid, have you ever been to court?" Proceeded to tell him the story of the 27 8x10 color glossy pictures with the circles and arrows and a paragraph on the back of each one. He stopped him right there. He said, "Kid, I want you to go over there and sit on that bench that says Group W. Now, kid." And he walked over to the bench there. Group W is where they put you if you may not be moral enough to join the army after committing your special crime. There was mother rapers, father stabbers, father rapers sitting right there on the bench next to Arlo. And they was mean and nasty and ugly and horrible, and crime and fighting guys were sitting there on the bench, and the meanest, ugliest, nastiest, one of the meanest father raper of them all went over to Arlo, and he was mean and ugly and nasty and horrible and all kinds of things, and he sat down next to Arlo and he said, "Kid, what'd you get?" And Arlo said, "I didn't get nothing. I had to pay $50 and pick up the garbage." He said, "Kid, what were you arrested for?" And Arlo said, "Littering." And they all moved away from him on the bench there, with hairy eyeball and all kinds of mean, nasty things, until he said, "And creating a nuisance." And they all came back, shook his hands, and they all had a great time on the bench talking about crime, mother stabbing, father raping, all kinds of groovy things that they was talking about on the bench, and everything was fine. They were smoking cigarettes and all kinds of things until the sergeant came over, had a piece of paper in his hand, held it up and said, "Kid, this piece of paper got 47 words, 37 sentences, 58 words. We want to know the details of crime, all the kind of thing there you guys say pertaining to, and crime, I want to know the arrest officer's name and other kinds of things you guys say." And he talked for 45 minutes, and nobody understood a word that he said, but they had fun filling out the forms and playing with the pencils on the bench there. Arlo filled out the Mass Creed with 4-part harmony and wrote it down there just like it was, and everything was fine. He put his pencil down and turned the piece of paper over, and there, on the other side, in the middle of the other side, away from everything else on the other side, in parentheses, capital letters, quote dated, read the following words. "Kid, have you rehabilitated yourself?" Arlo went over to the sergeant and said, "Sergeant, you got a lot of goddamn gall to ask me if I've rehabilitated myself. I mean, that you said I'm sitting here on the bench. I'm sitting here on the Group W bench because you want to know if I'm moral enough to join the army and burn women, kids' houses, and villages after being a litter bug." He looked at Arlo and said, "Kid, we don't like your kind. We're going to send your fingerprints off to Washington. And friends, somewhere in Washington, enshrined in some little folder, is a study in black and white of Arlo's fingerprints. And the only reason I'm singing you this song now is because you may know somebody in a similar situation, or you may be in a similar situation. And if you're in a situation like that, there's only one thing you can do. Walk into the shrink. Wherever you are, just walk in and say, "Shrink, you can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant," and walk out. if just one person does it, they may think they're really sick and they won't take them. And if 2 people do it, in harmony, they'll think you're both gay and they won't take either of you. And if 3 people do it, can you imagine 3 people walking in, singing a bar of Alice's restaurant and walking out? They may think it's an organization. And can you imagine 50 people a day? I said 50 people a day walking in, singing a bar of Alice's restaurant and walking out. Friends, they may think it's a movement. And that's what it is. Alice's restaurant. Anti-massacre of movement. And all you gotta do is sing it the next time it comes around. With feeling. You can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant. You can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant. Just walk right in, it's around the back. Just a half a mile from the railroad track. You can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant. You can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant. Excepting Alice, you can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant. Just walk right in, it's around the back. Just a half a mile from the railroad track. You can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant. La-da-da-da-da-da-da. At Alice's restaurant. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.